Okay, welcome back to our steady hand game. We've got Audrey doing the videotaping again for us, and we are going to put in some of our components into our printed circuit board. So the last video we had, we actually made our printed circuit board, and now we have to start adding the components into it. What we do is we turn it over, okay, so the copper side is on the bottom. And what I have here is I have this fantastic diagram that shows you where everything goes. It might be a bit hard to see on the camera, but that diagram shows our printed circuit board, and if you just hold that up to the light you can see the printed circuit board through it. Okay, it might be a bit hard to see on camera, but when you do this in real life it will all make a bit more sense. And the items that we're going to put in here on the diagram, we're going to put in our SCR, which stands for silicon controlled rectifier, and we are going to put in our 3 resistors, and that's what we're going to do this step. So looking at my diagram, I get my SCR, which is this little black thing here with the 3 legs on it. Okay, Audrey, you might have to move back a bit because that might not be in focus very well. Okay, that's enough. So that's got the 3 legs in it, and you have to look at your diagram to see where each one of those legs go. And you bend them out very gently because we don't want to snap these legs off it, and you put those into the 3 holes that it goes into. Remember, your components go on the side here that doesn't have the copper on it, so when the wires pop out, they pop out on the side that does have the wire on it. So that's our silicon controlled rectifier. Don't push it all the way down because you will break those wires, so push it down about that far. And then turn it over and bend the wires out so that it doesn't come out. So that's our first component that we're going to put into it. Then we're going to put in our first resistor, which is our brown, black and yellow resistor. It's got our brown, black, yellow lines on it. Now, you don't need to know these now when you're watching this video, but you do need to do the worksheet, the resistor worksheet, to know which colour goes where and understand what the colours actually mean. So when I say brown, black, yellow, if you haven't done the worksheet, those colours are probably going to mean nothing to you, but if you have done the worksheet, it will make perfect sense. Our second resistor is our brown, black and red one, and we put that in. So what we do when we put our resistors in, we put it in the holes, or actually probably bend them over first, and put them in the 2 holes that they're supposed to go in, push them all the way through, and on the other side, so you can see that's pushed all the way down, flip it over, on the other side just bend it back. Okay, and we do our brown resistor last, get that into the right place. As I say, keep checking your diagram to make sure you're putting them in the right holes. If you're having trouble here, by all means come and ask the teacher. And there we go, we've got our 3 resistors in place and they're bent over. Now what we have to do is we have to solder them in place. Okay, Audrey, can you just press pause please? Okay, so now we're going to start soldering it, and you should have done some soldering practice already, so this shouldn't be the first time that you're going to solder it. I've got over here my soldering iron. You might want to step back a bit, Audrey. And I give it a clean. You'll have a sponge at school. I've only got this wet cloth at the moment, but that should do just fine. And I've got my solder. Unfortunately, I am doing this at home and I don't actually have a clipboard or third hand, so I'm kind of going to hope this doesn't move away. I just melt my solder onto my soldering iron, and carefully, and this is why we did the soldering practice, because we carefully want to solder these components in place, and we want to make sure that our solder goes onto the component wire, whether it be the resistor or the SCR, and onto our printed circuit board. But not too big a solder, just a small one like this. Audrey, is it possible to come in and see that little piece of solder there? So the solder actually joins from the printed circuit board onto the component, and it's a nice small soldering joint. We don't want it to be too big. So that's 1, 2. More solder there. It's very important that these soldering joints are done well, otherwise your product won't function properly. 80% of the problems I have with students who make their product and it doesn't function properly, I would say 80% of them are soldering joints that haven't been done properly. So you don't want to do too much solder or too little, you want to get it just right. Okay. Yours is not going to go as quickly as mine, okay? I've done this many times before. I want you students to just take your time and make sure you get it right rather than just try and rush through it. Okay, Audrey, I'll get you to press pause and we'll come back to this when I finish. Okay, so now I've finished doing my soldering joints. It might be a bit hard to see on camera, but all those soldering joints are done pretty much perfect. I don't have any excess solder touching where it's not supposed to be, but all the components are soldered in very well. Now what I want to do is I just want to get rid of this excess wire, so I bend it up. I use my side cutters here, just get in there and just clip off the excess bits of wire. And there we go. Okay, we've got our 3 components soldered in very well. Thank you for your attention.